to another video. In this video we're going to be reviewing Resident Evil 2 Remake. I got this day one. It came out probably about almost a month ago at this point. And I've been playing it not non-stop, but pretty close to non-stop. I'm now 3 scenarios through. There's 4 scenarios. So figured I'd give my thoughts on it. This probably isn't going to be a very long game or long review, but you know, I always like to get my thoughts on stuff, and I was really looking forward to this one. Ever since I heard that it was a thing, I was really worried that Capcom would screw it up, and honestly they didn't. Just to get it out of the way, the story really isn't different. The story is basically exactly the same as the original, so if you've played the original, you know the story here. What's changed is everything else. The layout of the police station is relatively the same, but it's a little bit different. I feel like there's a room or two that weren't in there, or maybe they're moved, I don't know. It's been a while since I've played the original. So the layout is different, especially which doors are where, and like item layout. So like if you're going in here, and there is different layouts for certain rooms, like the main hallway. In the original, you couldn't get up to the 2nd floor from the main hallway until you already got up to the 2nd floor and lowered a ladder. In this one, there's actually 2 staircases that lead up to the 2nd floor immediately. Also, you don't meet Martin Branagh in the West office anymore. You meet him in the main hallway. So the layout is different, but like, you know, you're playing through it and you're running through it, and you still, you know, it's still the police station. It just feels different because it is. And there's obviously different like item layouts and stuff. There's items in here that were never in the original. So it's really cool. I remember playing it the first time and like getting to the police station, and I'm like, wait, whoa, like it's different. The gameplay is obviously different as well. The original had tank controls, so you couldn't move super duper freely. This is basically, I don't know how to word it. Take like Resident Evil 7, make it not first person, like Resident Evil 4's camera basically, but fine-tune Resident Evil 4's control. So it's like, it's weird to explain. It's more akin to a regular action game than it is of the original Resident Evils, which for some people might scream, you know, oh crap, but it's actually not terrible. They did it really well. The game still has a lot of suspense. I was actually really surprised to know that the game's actually legitimately creepy. I had probably 2 or 3 like legitimate oh crap like jump moments. I think all 3 of them were because of well, no, at least one or 2 of them were because of like zombies hiding around the corner, and zombies are much more like boo than they were before. You could usually have hindsight where a zombie was going to be in the original. In this one, you could be running down a hallway, and then all of a sudden from like a crevice like on the side of the hallway, boom, a zombie. And the zombies are actually something I dislike about the game, but I'll get into that. And I know that's kind of something silly to say about a Resident Evil game, but the other ones were the new gimmick for the game, Mr. X. He's not new, he was in the original, but in the original he was very limited to like certain areas of the police station. He wouldn't hound you throughout the police station like relentlessly like Nemesis did in Raccoon City. And even Nemesis had certain limitations, but he was basically, Nemesis felt like what they wanted to do with Mr. X perfected for the next game. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it was. This feels like what they wanted to do with Mr. X and Nemesis, like completely perfected. Like, they couldn't get it any better. He no longer has certain rooms that he appears in and then follows you for 1 or 2 rooms. As soon as you trigger him, he follows you relentlessly throughout the police station. Now you can lose him. Like, if you run fast enough through certain rooms, you can leave him behind, and you can hide from him. But if you shoot your gun or run in a room close to him or something like that, he'll hear that and come to that room. So you have to be really, really careful. So he can actually find you, and he doesn't, disappear. He follows you relentlessly no matter what. He can't follow you into other areas unless it is scripted. Like, he can't follow you. There are safe rooms. He can't follow you into, like, the dark room, which is a safe room. And he can't follow you into different areas. He is relegated to the police station segment. So when you're in the sewers or the laboratory, he can't follow you in there unless he's scripted to. For instance, there's a part in the parking area below the police station. He can't follow you down there. Except for when you finish one of the puzzles and you get the card key, you have to make a mad dash out, because the prison releases a bunch of zombies. As you're running down the hallway, he shows up and you have to kind of avoid him to get out, but that's a scripted event. Other than that, until you trigger that, he can't follow you. Unlike we're in the police station, once you trigger him, he's there. So Mr. X is actually really, really, really cool. And Leon, I think it was Leon's second run through is where I had my first legitimate, I actually jumped a little bit and was like, oh shit, and ran the other direction. I was walking down a hallway in the original game, well, in the original run through. It had a liquor in it, and they did something really cool with the liquors in here, because they're a lot harder to kill than in the original. In this, they introduced what they did with Resident Evil 5, where the lickers are blind completely, they can't see you. So you can actually sneak past them. And I don't recall that being in the original. So you can actually sneak by them. The problem arises when you are in rooms with lickers and zombies. Zombies will see you and chase after you. And walking as slow as you need to not trigger the lickers lets the zombies catch up, and if you shoot the zombie, the licker hears you. There is a way around that. There is a suppressor, I think, for Claire, that you can shoot in the room and the lickers won't hear you. But there's not too many instances where it kind of screws you. There's only one room I'm thinking of in the laboratory. So the lickers are really cool and updated. Mr. X is perfected. It's really, really cool. But I was, sorry to finish that story, I was walking down that hallway where the liquor was, and in the second run through, he's not there. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever, he's not here. I kept walking down, and the hallway turns to the left, and it's really dark. In the game, there are dark rooms where Leon or Claire holds their flashlight to see. So I'm walking down this hallway with the, limited camera view, and I get to, here's the curve, here's, Leon, basically. So I get about here. All of a sudden, Mr. X, with his trench coat and fedora, turns the corner. I legitimately jumped in my chair and was like, uh-oh, and bolted behind me. And then I had to, run a couple of rooms to lose him. That's really, really cool. And earlier in that run-through, you check a computer, and you see the security footage, and you see him, walking. So you know he's coming. You just don't know where, because he spawns in a different location than he did in the first run-through. Also, pretty sure Mr. X was limited to whoever scenario B you were playing in the original game. He shows up in every scenario in this game. You cannot avoid having to deal with Mr. X. On the other note of monsters that are really, really cool, the zombie designs are really, really cool. They're really, really well done. The game looks gorgeous. I play it on a Pro, but I've seen footage from a regular PS4, and even without the Pro, it still looks phenomenal. The zombies, though, are the worst, in my opinion. Excuse me. Of course, everything shows up when I'm trying to record. Whatchamacallit, Mr. X is really cool. You can shoot him, a bunch, and he'll stagger, and he'll stay there for a couple minutes. The lickers you eventually kill, and as far as I'm aware, they never get up when you get them down. Also, for anybody playing this game that needs some help, save your flash grenades for Mr. X. They stun him almost as long as you shooting him. So the flash grenades are really, like, they barely do anything against the zombies, but to Mr. X, they actually stagger him almost as long as, like, shooting him a bunch. So try to save your flash grenades for Mr. X, because trust me, it'll be really helpful. You can use your regular grenades for zombies, but I'd save those for bosses. Use the flash grenades for Mr. X. But the zombies, in my opinion, got it the worst in this version. And it's just that I don't like what they did with them. I love, they're in the rooms, you're walking around, you find a zombie, like the original games. What I don't like is once you get a headshot, most zombies go down in 3 or 4 headshots. And they'll fall down. In the original games, unless you were playing Resident Evil Remake on the GameCube or PS3, they stayed down, and the only time they got back up is if they turned into a Crimson Head in the remake. This game doesn't have the Crimson Head. This game doesn't have the Crimson Head mechanic, but they'll still get up. So you can, and I've had a zombie get up like 4 different times. Excuse me. I've had a zombie get up at like 4 different times. So you can shoot this thing potentially like 12 or more times in the head, and it'll get up. I don't like that mechanic. There's no reason for it to continue to get up. It's not any stronger, it's not any faster, it doesn't do more damage, it's not a Crimson Head, it just keeps getting up. The only time to keep them down is, one, if you've somehow managed to shoot them in the head enough times and they fall over and they just don't get up, or with a shotgun or a lucky headshot from a handgun, the head will like burst open and they'll fall down and they won't get up after that. But I don't like the fact, like, no zombie at all in the original games that I can think of took 12 headshots and still moved. I don't like that mechanic. And I would have understood that mechanic if, one, they introduced the Crimson Head mechanic, or like there were less zombies in every room. Like there was only like 1 zombie strewn about occasionally or something like that. That would make them more relentless, that would make sense. However, you're dealing with a game that you have a lot less ammo in. This isn't Resident Evil 6. You have a lot less ammo again, which is good. I love this game, don't get me wrong, but the biggest problem with it is the zombies, because they're bullet sponges at this point, and I don't like that. There is enough stuff in this game that takes your ammo. There's Mr. X, there's the lickers, there's the zombies, there's Birkin, there's the weird slug monster zombies in the sewer. There is enough things in the game to take your resources without having to make the regular ass zombies bullet sponges. So I don't like the fact that they can take 12 or 16 hits and still keep getting up. It doesn't make sense to me. Now granted, you can use a shotgun on them and they won't get back up, and if you get lucky and the headshot bursts their head open, they won't get back up. But no zombie in the series, even shooting it in the body, would take 12 hits. That's almost a full clip in the original game. No zombie in those games took that many hits, and there were less zombies arguably in that game. Again, if there were less zombies in this game, like there were, there weren't rooms filled with 3 or 4 of them, and there was only like 1, strewn across like every other room or something, zombies can actually follow you through certain rooms now. So it would actually make sense for there to be less zombies that take more hits, and they can follow you through rooms. That would make them more relentless. And, I don't care how you explain it. You could explain it as like a story element where, they're brand new zombies so they can take more punishment or something like that. Whereas the mansion zombies were, dead for a while longer, so their tissue was suffered or something. I don't know. You could have explained it like that. You're working with a lot less ammunition. You're working with more things that take even more ammo to kill, and you buffed up the zombies even more. And keep in mind, I'm talking from experience on normal difficulty. I didn't play assisted or hardcore. One, I feel like it's demeaning as a Resident Evil fan for me to play assisted. Like I've played all of the other Resident Evil games. It'd be like a punch in my pride to play assisted mode at this point. In hardcore, I'm gonna play eventually, but if it's anything like Madhouse difficulty, I'm gonna have to mentally prepare myself to want to punch my TV. Because this game, even on assist or even on normal, is actually a lot harder than you might think. On normal mode, again, I don't know how assisted mode is. On normal, everything that I'm saying, Mr. X taking a bunch of shots, the lickers being more durable, the zombies being way more durable, and control-wise, the game controls perfectly, but a similar problem with the aiming that I had with 7 is that because, it's a more, free aiming system, and the zombies shamble a lot more than, say, the enemies in Resident Evil 4 did. Because they're actually zombies. They shamble a lot more, so they could, be like this, so getting a headshot's a lot harder. It's like the mold monsters in Resident Evil 7. They would move around like that, so getting a headshot is a lot harder. So it's not only do they take 3 times the punishment, but also it's a lot easier to miss your target. Mr. X is kind of the exception because Mr. X just comes straight at you, so getting a headshot on it is easier. The lickers are a more broad, target, and if I'm taking on a licker, I'm using the shotgun. Same for Birkin. His target, his eye is usually big enough that it's pretty easy to hit. The zombies got it worst in this remake. They're so much more beefier. You have so much less ammo. It feels like a classic Resident Evil, but with the difficulty ramped up a little bit. I don't remember having as much trouble as I did in this game in the original Resident Evil 2. Maybe I did, but for different reasons, because the zombies went down easier. And I'm not saying being difficult is bad, I'm just saying be difficult for different reasons. The zombies should not be the main point of contention. You have Mr. X relentlessly hounding you. There's a room, it's the library, where you have to do a puzzle with Mr. X hounding you, and there's five or six zombies in the room. Unless you headshot every one of those zombies and flashbang or shoot Mr. X, you're gonna have a bad time. I only finished that puzzle because I kept looping around the room. So it's really, really easy to end up getting screwed. And again, you're dealing with less ammo than you would have with 4, 5, or 6. So it's really easy to run out of, the game doesn't want you to kill every zombie. But the hallways are so cramped that it's really, really difficult to not. And I guess the point is that you can shoot them 3 times in the head, they'll fall over, and then you just run past them, and then when you come back, they'll be there again. But that wasn't like that in Resident Evil 2. Every room was its own challenge, because, yeah, sure, the zombies would take less shots, but they were, you were cramped with them. Same thing, but there's more zombies, and if there's not more zombies in a room, they take more hits. It just seems really weird. And honestly, the zombies are actually harder to avoid than Mr. X, in my opinion. Because Mr. X has to wind up his punch, so you can actually kind of, slide past him. The zombies? Good luck sliding past a zombie. I've only done it a couple times, and it was on accident, because they grab you. Should note, this game does have defense items, like in the Resident Evil Remake. Knives, which deteriorate as you use, but they give you a lot of knives. Flash grenades, which Leon puts in their mouth. It doesn't kill them, but it, gets them off of you. and then regular grenades, which if Leon puts it in its mouth, it blows up the zombie. From my experience, though, if you put a regular grenade in the zombie's mouth, and the zombie is crowded with a bunch of other zombies, the grenade in the mouth only affects the zombie that you put it in its mouth. It doesn't affect the other zombies. Unlike if you throw the grenade, then it affects everybody. I think that's all of the defense items. But there are defense items, which is really, really useful. And you can get, if you stab a zombie with the knife, you can actually get the knife back. You just have to down the zombie so you can pick it up. So my biggest complaint, the layout is different, but it's still similar. The layout's different, but it's still Resident Evil 2. The puzzles aren't too terrible to figure out, but they feel Resident Evil. It's actually legitimately creepy, which is something that I don't mind Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, but I was kind of looking for a new, another Resident Evil. Resident Evil 7 was really, really, really good, but there were points in it that didn't really feel Resident Evil. This feels Resident Evil. It's Resident Evil 2 again, just updated, and it's really, really, really cool. My biggest complaint comes from zombies, which is kind of ironic because Resident Evil is known for the zombies, but they shouldn't be bullet spongy. It just doesn't feel right. Like, the first time it happened to me, I was like, what? Like, why? I would have been fine with them not getting up and adding like one zombie per room again. Like, instead of a room having 2 zombies that relentlessly keep getting up, there's 3 zombies that you only have to shoot 3 times. But the challenge comes from, aiming at their heads because they're shambling everywhere. My biggest point of contention is the zombies, but everything else about the game is so darn good. I can't complain about it too much. I'm sure I'm going to complain about it a ton in hardcore mode, but the rest of the game is so good that, like, I'm not going to complain about it that much. Also, if you have the best girlfriend ever or can afford it, get the deluxe edition. It's so good. What you get for the deluxe edition is 5 premium costumes, which is cool in its own right. Leon has like a kind of like a southern like cop outfit. Kind of reminds me of Rick from Walking Dead. A noir outfit. They both have a noir outfit, and Leon has his classic outfit. They both Leon and Claire can get their classic outfits. Claire has a military outfit on top of the noir and regular outfit, and also an Elza Walker outfit, which is a throwback to Resident Evil 1.5, which is the beta of Resident Evil 2. You get that. The Samurai Edge Albert model, which is a stronger handgun that you start with in the box, and it takes handgun ammo, so you can switch it out for your handgun that you start with, and it's better. Reversible cover art, which is it's basically just this, but with Claire. And the best part of it is a long-time Resident Evil fan. I've been playing these games since I was like 3 or 4. Maybe not playing them, but like watching them being played. I've been around this series basically since, I started my life. There's some of my earliest gaming memories is with this series, so I love this series to death. Best part of the deluxe edition, and it's like the selling point for me. Original soundtrack. You can swap out the remake soundtrack with the original soundtrack while playing it. It's so good. I convinced myself to play the game with the new soundtrack for at least once. I wanted to do at least one run through with the new soundtrack. I just couldn't do it. Halfway through Leon's first run through, which is the first run through I did, there's barely really any music. It's mostly ambient noises, which works. But as somebody who loves music in video games, I had to switch the soundtracks. And when I did, oh my god. I actually, like, the little kid in me seeing Resident Evil 2 for the first time, like, came out. And I was like, oh my god, like, this is Resident Evil 2. You're running down the hallways and the classic like music for the hallways. The police station is playing. Mr. X's theme is back. They all, it all has its original sound cues. The save room music, you get the original sound effects. So when you're going through your menus, you get that original, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but that original noise. The boxes creak open like they used to. And the best track of the game, fighting Birkin for the final time, well, the second to final time, is back. And that's literally the best track of the game. I love that track. It's so good. It's so... If you are a longtime Resident Evil fan, literally you owe it to yourself to get the deluxe edition just for the original soundtrack. You will... I want to say I can almost guarantee that you will like this game if you're a longtime fan. Because it's different, but it's the same. Like, it's a very faithful and well done recreation of the original game, modernized. But not modernized so much that when you look at it, you're like, oh my god, what did you do to my game? And again, if you've never played a Resident Evil game, or you've only played like 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that, or maybe 7, and you're like, okay, the series is cool, I'm gonna pick this one up. You don't have to get the deluxe edition. It's like $80 as opposed to the $60 that the normal version is. And I'm pretty sure you can get all of this for DLC, so I guess if you're not a longtime fan, just buy the original, and then buy the DLC if you really, really enjoy it. As a longtime fan, though, $80 is a small price to pay, honestly, just for the original soundtrack. Playing this game with the original soundtrack is so good. But everything about this game is so good, except for the zombies, but whatever. Everything else about this game is so good that I have a hard time nitpicking even the 1 or 2 things that I dislike about. It's just such a joyous game to play. Not only is it fun just as a game, but as a longtime fan, it feels like Resident Evil. Resident Evil 4 is still probably always going to be my favorite. It's my stress relief game. I have like 10 copies of the game. It's always going to be my favorite. But I love the classic games, and this feels like Resident Evil 2. Like, yeah, obviously it's not tank controls, but it feels right. I popped this game in, started playing it, got to the police station, and I walked into the police station, and I actually just stood there and looked at it for a minute, because I was like, oh my god, this is Resident Evil 2 again. This is, like, it really feels like that's what they meant the game to be, basically. Like, that's, if they could have made this back then, I feel like that's what they would have done. And, Resident Evil 2, the original, is phenomenal, don't get me wrong. But they did such a phenomenal job remaking it, and I feel like it's a really good redo of such a loved game, because Resident Evil 2 is like a big fan favorite of the series. So if you like Resident Evil, or you just want a fun horror game, there you go. Pick it up, please. It's so good. I mean, you probably already did, because this game did phenomenally.